Then I'll stretch, maybe sketch, take a climb, sew a dress. I love Rapunzel. Dare I say my favourite Disney princess? Absolute hair goals, by the way. I love everything about her, but do you know what I also love? Renaissance dresses. Last summer I made my Warrior Rapunzel fantasy dress, and I thought this year I needed to outdo myself. And to do that, I'm going to, you guessed it, combine Renaissance style dresses with Rapunzel. I am so excited to start this project. I literally cannot wait. So you know what? Let's do this. This is gonna take me forever. When I say forever, I mean all summer. It is a big project. So if you enjoy this, maybe give it a like. That would make me smile. Let me know your thoughts in the comment and let's do this. So quickly, let's talk design. So as I said, Renaissance style clothing with Rapunzel's character design. So what that means is lots of shades of purple and pink. A waist that is like very high, sits just under the bust, basically like an empire waistline as seen in many Renaissance portraits. And I want to have lots of different pieces that sort of come together to make this costume. I'm also going to be using gold as an accent colour, of course, and hiding many suns in this project. So without further ado, let's start sewing. The fabrics. Okay, so looking at all the fabrics I pulled for this project, they were all bought secondhand from the charity shop. I've been collecting various purples and pinks with a Rapunzel project in mind for about a year now. I'm so excited that I can finally use them. The underdress. Starting with the base layers, we've got the underdress. This will be sandwiched between the chemise and the outer dress. It won't be seen too much in the final design, but will provide structure and stability. So to make this, I'm using, what a surprise, a thrifted curtain. I start by first laying out the fabric on the floor. Since we're working with a very limited amount, I focus on cutting the bodice pieces first, and I'll just use the rest of the fabric for the skirt. After measuring about a million times because I was scared of messing up and running out of fabric, I finally laid down the pattern pieces I had drafted previously. I pinned them to the curtain fabric and cut around them. This bodice is comprised of two pieces that lace up either side under the arms. I cut out the bodice pieces in the gold curtain fabric and white polycotton fabric for the lining. With the pieces cut, I begin sewing the bodice. Ordinarily, I would sew up the sides, but of course this is where the eyelets will go, so we're not doing that today. Instead, I join the pieces together at the shoulders. I can then add the lining. The skirt is made up of two large rectangles pleated at the front and the back. I would have used more fabric, but like I said, we were limited with what we're working with. When the skirt and bodice pieces were attached, I sewed up the edges of the skirts together and finally hemmed the skirt. I then did some hand sewing to finish this dress, particularly at the armholes and inside at the bottom of the bodice. Then it was on to adding eyelets. There were 16 eyelets in total, 8 per panel, 4 going down under the arm on each side, and they were gold to match the dress. Even though they won't be seen in the final dress, I know they're there. And with that, we have a finished underdress. Next up is the chemise. The chemise is the uttermost base layer. Everything is built upon this dress. You won't really be able to see much of it at the end except for the sleeves and around the neckline. I chose a pink chiffon because I wanted it to be very lightweight and floaty, and of course the pink reflects Rapunzel's dress, particularly her own sleeves. Luckily, I found this perfect old prom dress, I think, at the charity shop that I could rip up and repurpose. The beaded motifs reminded me so much of Rapunzel, and I knew I wanted to incorporate them somehow. So I ripped up this dress. She was cute, so rest in peace, but alas, she now has a new, more Rapunzel-infused life. Once deconstructed, which did actually take a while, I was being quite careful because of course I didn't want to damage it or lose any of the fabric since there was only limited. I could properly see what I was working with. I then cut the pieces. I ended up going with just 2, one for the front and one for the back. I then cut a big bowl shape out of the top. It was double-ish my measurements because I wanted the top bit to be elasticated. I hemmed the neckline and the bottom of the skirt, and then I could work on elasticating the top of the chemise. To do this, I shirred the neckline by using elastic thread in the bobbin of my machine, stitching with a large stitch length. I did the same thing for the bottom of the sleeve. They were basically large tubes that were shirred at the end so they would sit snug on my wrist. I purposefully made the sleeves extra long so that when the armbands were worn with the sleeves, they would look more poofy. Down the edges of the skirt and on the sleeve pieces, I used French seams because obviously chiffon is sheer so you can see through it. It's also very lightweight and quite fragile, so French seams are super strong and durable. So down the edges of the sleeves and down the edges of the dress, that was the seam that I used. So this is what the chemise looks like. Obviously it's a little bit funky, but like I said, it will serve as the base layer for the rest of the dress. Everything will be built on top of this, and you'll just see it around the neckline and on the sleeves. This is what it looks like with the underdress. So like I said, the whole main and bottom part of it has completely disappeared, but you will see the sleeves. I low-key like how this looks together. I think it's quite a cute little outfit, but there we have the base layers finished. Next is on to the overdress. This will be the outermost layer that will sit on top of the chemise and the underdress. It will also feature a lot of the beading. I start by cutting out the bodice pieces using a pattern I had drafted previously for my last Renaissance dress. I chose to go with this lighter purple for the bodice, and I only had one cushion cover to Tetris my pattern pieces onto. Simultaneously, I cut out the lining pieces and begin sewing them together. Once pinned, I can start sewing the bodice pieces together. I just use a straight stitch on my machine to join the pieces. Once sewn, I then iron the seams flat so they lay flush against my body and won't cause any bumps in the bodice. I then attach the lining to the outer pieces so I can hide the raw seams on the inside. Next, I work on adding the applique to the bodice. I salvaged these appliques from the pink dress I bought because I knew I still wanted to incorporate them in some way. I love how reminiscent they are of the designs on Rapunzel's dress. I pin them in place on the bodice and keep moving them until I am totally happy with the placement. Then I can use a whip stitch to hand sew them in place. The eyelets. I then move on to adding the eyelets. Since I want the eyelets to lace up tightly at the front, I add a piece of boning on the edge so the fabric won't sag and lose its shape under the pressure. I measure out the placement of the eyelets using measuring tape and chalk. Once I'm happy everything is evenly spaced, I move on to actually hammering the eyelets down. I choose gold since I knew this was going to be a recurring accent colour, plus I had something fun in mind with these eyelets. The skirt. So I then switched to working on the skirt. I used 2 thrifted curtains for this. They weren't too big, so I didn't have much fabric to work with, but I did start by joining them together to have one large panel of fabric. I essentially used this giant rectangle of fabric as the skirt piece. I cut the bottom edge slightly curved and hemmed it using a rolled hem so it would sit more train-like on the floor. I pleated the top edge of the fabric with knife pleats, holding them in place using pins. Then I ironed them flat and stitched the bodice and skirt pieces together right sides facing. So this is what it's looking like so far. Detailing. So being happy with where we were with the overdress, I decided to hand paint some tiny little suns around the eyelets. This was actually something I did on my Warrior Rapunzel dress last year, but the eyelets being little gold circles was just too perfect to leave blank. Plus, I love tiny little details, even when they take forever. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. I've got the bodice attached to the skirt, so it's starting to look like an actual dress. I sewed the appliques on, so you can see they're stitched down. I genuinely love how much these look like the actual design on her dress in the films. I think it's like the perfect little touch, and I'm so glad that I managed to find them. The appliques are sewn down. We have the suns around the eyelets. I also love the contrast between this deep purple and this lighter purple. But yes, I know you can't see the whole thing, but It's looking like a dress.
Beading. Next, I start preparing for the beadwork with painting. Since the fabric is this deep purple colour, to allow the gold beads to pop and shine nicely, I add a layer of gold fabric paint beneath. I did this for both the overdress and sleeve bands at the same time, which is why you'll see me switching from large areas of fabric to smaller ones. I was focused on painting the suns at this point since I knew that's what I wanted to be beaded. I made a template first and sketched the design on in pencil, which is why it looks quite neat because that acted as a guide for me. Painting on the overdress, I slid a piece of cardboard between the outer layer and the lining, so the paint wouldn't bleed between the fabrics. I started with the circle in the middle, then built up upon the design with the sun streaks. I started by just outlining them, which I almost kept as a design feature, but I later changed this to being fully painted, which I think paid off in the end. Obviously this took quite a long time, and I kept adjusting the fabric and my position to paint more easily. I was hunched over like this for a long time, so my back was suffering, but hey, it was definitely worth it.
So I forgot to say, but the next thing we have to do is the beading. So I've got my beads ready and I'm just gonna go for it. Lots of suns. I have no idea how long this is going to take, so wish me luck. I actually love beading. I find it really therapeutic, so I am actually quite looking forward to this.
Okay, so now onto the mammoth task of actually beading. I decided to start with the centre of the sun, then work my way round each sunstroke. I'm using an embroidery hoop to keep the tension, which is why it's easier to start in the middle. A better thing to do would be to have a large tapestry / embroidery frame that's like a rectangle shape, but I didn't have one of those when I was beading, so alas, embroidery hoops will do. I am sort of making up the design as I go, but I know I want to mix the textures and patterns as much as possible with the beads to give a unique and tactile look that overall stands out.
Okay, so I'm currently working on some beading, so I thought I'd show you where we're at so far. So the beads I'm using, I've got two types of seed beads. One that's, I think it's 2 and 4 millimeters. So we've got some size ranges going on, and then also some like twisty little bugle beads, and that's rhinestone. This is where we're at so far on, I've got 2 big suns to do on the main skirt, and then I've also got the 4 suns that will be like on the sleeve. So I've got 1 of 4 done for these, and then I've just started today 1 of 2. We're doing the middle bit first. I'm really liking how it's going. I'm trying to get, obviously I've got 3 types of beads, so I have got some different textures, but I'm trying to really vary the textures, if it will focus, to get a nice like 3-dimensional look going on. I definitely underestimated how long this was going to take. I knew it would take a while because obviously beading always does. Any type of embroidery, anything like that takes ages, but this is taking a very long time. But I'm really pleased with how it's looking. I think it looks really effective, and I could have just left it painted down the front on the skirt, but I think this like 3D element and the way that it captures the light as well is just perfect. So I think it's definitely going to be worth it, but I'll update you as we keep going.
I'm just giving you a closer look so you can see a little bit better, because it's quite hard to see when I showed you what we're working with so far. Like I said, I've tried to get the different like textures, so hopefully it'll catch the light in a nice way. This one is harder to do because it's smaller, so you're working with less space, and so I have managed to get all different types of beads on there, but I still think it looks quite effective. So I'm really happy with how these are going so far. Like I said, I will update you in the future. So back to beading, like I said, I'm working from the centre and then working my way out. It's quite slow progress, but every stitch makes a difference. Here's how the beading on the sleeve bands are coming along. Obviously they're a lot smaller, but I still think they look really effective, and again, I love how they look in the light. I mean, come on, tell me this isn't the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen. I've obviously got lots of progress videos of the centre sun. I'm really pleased and really proud of how they're looking. Obviously they're taking a very long time, but I think they're looking really effective so far. Both of the middle suns have finally been beaded, So I'm going to be honest, this alone took forever, so I have severely underestimated this task, but on the positive, I love how they look so much, I'm actually obsessed. This also means I can finally start beading the sunstrokes. This process is a bit more tedious because of the shape, but by starting on the outside and working my way in, I know the shape will be strong and not lose its bold lines. I start with bugle beads on the outside because they're long and help build that outline of the shape, which is important. I then constantly switch the type of bead I use as I go into the centre of the shape.
It's also interesting because this clip is obviously real time, so you can see it's not quite as simple as it looks when it's sped up, and it's much quicker and nicer and neater, but each stitch requires a lot of time, and there are lots of knots that get made, lots of mistakes, and it is frustrating, but you sort of just got to keep going. And I mean, you can probably see in this video I sort of get right into the groove of it and relax a bit.
So we've got various sun progress shots with the beading sparkling in the sun. I genuinely can't get over how gorgeous it looks in direct sunlight. Like, this golden shine is exactly what I wanted, so again, I'm obsessed. Obviously, it takes so long to get to this point, but oh my god, seeing it like this is so worth it. I also think that varying the beads used really helps the design catch the light more and refract in really pretty ways. Here we've got a little close-up, just so you can see the beads a little clearer. The reason I've left the smaller sunstrokes is because they wouldn't fit into the embroidery hoops with the rest of the beading, so I'll do them at a later time without the hoops.
Obviously, you're just seeing the little clips of the updates where I finished each sunstroke and I'm sort of showing you the bulk differences. But obviously, it sort of goes without saying, there are so many hours of beading that go in between each one. Everything takes 5 times longer than you think it would. Obviously, it's very intricate and it's all being done by hand. So it is very time consuming, like I said, but it does look effective. Again, here you can see the different types of beads a little bit easier. Obviously, I put them in the pattern that made sense for me.
So clearly we've got a lot of beading going on, and I had to switch up my positioning a lot. A, because I was tired of the same place, and B, because this is happening over weeks. So because I decided to make this dress in the height of summer, yep, a really good idea, and the UK had a heat wave, which is not a fun experience, by the way. No one has air conditioning. I was constantly looking for cooler places to bead, but it did mean that the evenings were a really nice temperature, so I often took my beading outside in the garden as the sun was setting, which was really nice.
And since I can't resist showing you the beaded sun in the sun, wow, that makes sense, doesn't it? Here's another look at that because I just think it makes the beading look so gorgeous and exactly what I want it to be.
Sleeve beading. Okay, switching it up now, let's look at the sleeve beading. So there are going to be 4 sleeve bands, each with its own beaded sun. Obviously these are a lot smaller than the big suns on the overdress, but being smaller does come with its own challenges, as it's harder to get those clear shapes, so more stitches are needed for the number of beads. But one positive is that the whole design fits into the embroidery hoop, which is super helpful. Plus, being smaller, I can really do this beading anywhere. So lots of beading later, this is what all the sleeve bands look like. Obviously you can see we've got 2 slightly wider pieces and 2 slightly longer ones. The wider sleeve bands will sit on my upper arm, but the longer ones will sit on my wrist. Again, I am obsessed with how gorgeous these look in the sun, they are perfect. With the beading done, I can then sew the lining to the outer beaded pieces. I sew them right sides facing, which is why you can see the back. I then turn them inside out so I can iron them flat, making them ready to add eyelets. Eyelets. Okay, so next we're adding all the eyelets. That's 4 on each side of the sleeve band, so 8 per sleeve band, making it 32 in total, which is insane but necessary. To add the eyelets, I make a small hole in the fabric and then place the eyelets in position and hammer them together. You repeat this process, like I said, 32 times, which does begin to take a toll on your mind. You'll find out shortly as I begin to lose my sanity momentarily. But it is a necessary part of the process, and they end up looking pretty good in the end.
Okay. We've got, what is this dress? We've got a Rapunzel Renaissance update. Okay, so I'm almost done the beading, but not quite, but almost, but as I will explain further in a moment. So the suns are almost done, which is super, super exciting. Took flipping forever, but I'm loving how they're looking. Again, almost done, not quite. I need to do the little swirly bits. But then I was thinking like, I might have to go with a little bit more beading here because it's sort of like, there's just like this expanse of purple and then these beautiful, gorgeous suns at the bottom. I'm thinking we may need to add a little bit more. Okay, you're saying, Lucy, don't have any time to do this, but Rapunzel. So I'm thinking some cheeky little swirls maybe just to fill the space a little bit, but we're not going to think about that right now because I've got other things to do and I don't have the time to do it. But what I am going to show you is the armbands which I'm working on right now. Are you ready? Okay, we're moving the camera. Woo! Look how high tech I am. Don't look at my messy bed, it's not made. Down you go, down to the floor. Okay, so currently what I'm doing is working on the, what they called, sleeve bands. Look how pretty these are. Woo! So the suns, I'm really happy with how these look. I think they're very effective. And I'm in the process of adding eyelets. Here we go. Takes forever and is super loud. And the time currently is, I actually don't know what the time is. Maybe it's like 5-6 o'clock. And I have neighbours next door who have children. So if I'm doing eyelets, I need to make sure I've stopped by 7 p.m. I don't know when their bedtime is, but I'm assuming 7 p.m. is a safe bet. And I get nervous that they probably definitely can, hear me hammering these through the walls. I'm sorry, neighbours, they're very friendly people. Thank you. They put up with my stuff all the time. They're very nice. But if I'm going to do this, I need to make sure I do it before 7 p.m. because if I was a 10-year-old boy trying to sleep and all I could hear was some banging of a hammer next door, oh my god, I'm going to choke. And all I could hear was a banging of a hammer next door, I wouldn't be very happy. So I need to do that sooner rather than later. Once I stop talking to you, that's what I'm going to do. Then we'll have sleeve bands. Mostly, I need to hand sew them as well. But looking good. I'm so excited. I can see the finish line almost in sight, but it's still quite far away. But yeah, update. Woo! Oh my god, it's low-key giving when she's like sweep again, and by then it's like 7:15. So real, girl. Actually, not real, because I was gonna say the end is near. I hope the end is not near. The end of the dress, not of any form of life. I have a deadline. I have got a lot to do, so we're gonna hope it goes well. Woo! You can do it. Woo! 7 a.m. the usual morning lineup. I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited. But I got so much to do. I've got so much to do. But we're gonna get through it. We're gonna do it. Yes. Woo! Before I go to university, before I go on holiday, because I'm taking it on holiday with me. We've got like a week left. We've got a week. And do you know how much sewing I've done today? That's not quite true. I've done a little bit, but I've also been sorting out my wardrobe. So we got this. We got this. Oh my god, Tangle the series. I was like, where am I quoting that from and why is it Rapunzel? We got this. No prob. There we go. Look at me go. That was really bad. Okay, I can't sing. Just saying.
Okay, so then to make my life a million times harder than it has to be, I decided that the eyelets were not enough. No, because why would leaving 32 eyelets the way they are be enough? I decided they had to be painted. That's right, each of the 32 eyelets needed its own little sun, even though these will be on the underarm and you probably won't even see them. They just had to be painted suns. So, of course, with my impending deadline, I got to work on that pretty quick, because it's not like I had anything else to do. Okay, but for all the criticising of my past self, yes, they look very cool and very effective. And yes, my detail-oriented brain would not have been able to not have little suns, where it was just too perfect an opportunity to pass up. Lots of painting later, we've got all 32 finished painted suns. Okay, and being so real, yes, I love how these look, and yes, I am glad I did it. My back, probably not so much. My poor posture is crying right now, but hey, I love it, and that's all that matters. So I'm just using gold fabric paint to paint on the little sun detailing, obviously taking a very long time. You can see I'm sat down in my bed doing this, just because it was the most comfortable position for me to be in. I then gradually turn round the sleeve bands. Obviously because they're small I can do that, and that gives me the best position to paint so I don't smudge the paint and I can sort of see what I'm doing and not ruin it, which is obviously quite important. The headpiece. Okay, so moving on to the headpiece, this was a bit of a challenge because I knew I wasn't going to wear a wig, but obviously Rapunzel's long blonde hair is an iconic part of her character, so I wanted to include a nod to it in at least some way. I played around with loads of different ideas and thought, what if I used fabric to represent her hair? I knew I wanted some kind of headpiece to go with the outfit anyway, so I switched my thinking to incorporating some kind of veil. I decided that yellow gold fabric would mimic the hair well, so I started by hemming this yellow chiffon with a rolled hem. I use chiffon because it's lightweight and has a really good fluidity to it. I ironed the hem flat so it would sit nicely, and then directed my attention to the rest of the headpiece. I decided to go with a circular halo type headpiece in a pink velvet. Pink, of course, to tie in with Rapunzel's colours. I sewed around the edge of the fabric, then stuffed the piece with small bits of scrap fabrics that I had lying around. I don't like to throw anything away, so this is a good way to recycle those tiny bits of material you really don't have any other use for. I then wrapped gold ribbon around the headpiece to add some texture and an interesting element. So this is what it's looking like so far. I tried it on a lot at this point just to see what it was looking like on my head, to make sure it fit, and I'm really loving how it looks. I then hand stitched the yellow fabric onto the circular headpiece, trying it on again and again to ensure I was happy with the placement. Since I'm sewing this at a bit of an odd angle, it is quite tricky, but I sort of just keep going until I get round and everything is on securely. Since the fabric is very thick, particularly the velvet, it used to be a curtain, so it is a upholstery fabric. I am pulling quite roughly. I'm sort of yanking the needle through, which isn't proper form, but needed to be done. So ideally I would have had a better needle, but alas. So this is what the headpiece looks like. I am so happy with how this turned out, and honestly, I think it was pretty ingenious. Like, I am proud of me for thinking of this. It still fits in with the Renaissance aesthetic, which I really love. Also, the fact that it's easily removable makes things so much easier. One of the reasons I decided against the Juliet cap is that it would have been pinned into my hair. So once it's on, it's not coming off, at least for a long time. I still think I'm going to make one in the future just to see how the different styles would look. I think that's quite a fun idea, but I also really like how this headpiece frames the face. Anyway, enough talking about the headpiece, let's look at some beading. So I'm just showing you here what the beaded suns look like up close and finished. Obviously these sit at the bottom of the skirt, so you can't see them that well from far away. So here, all up close and beautiful, bask in the beauty and detail, and I just want to eat them up, they look so yummy. Here's also some extra beading. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Its existence, which I will explain in just a moment. But of course, no, we were not done. There's always more. Also, pre-warning, minor crash out is incoming imminently. But hey, it's all part of the creative process.
Okay, Rapunzel update. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm going on holiday. Today is Tuesday. Okay, I've got one day. I've got 1 day! I'm actually not going till the crack of dawn on Friday morning, but I'm not here Thursday, so I've basically only got a day left. And I'm doing Jude. Look, there's Jude. I've just done a Jude update, right? This is what I'm working on at the moment, so Rapunzel's not getting any love, bless her. Okay, update. So I did the beaded suns, and I'm so happy with them. I love them. They're gorgeous. They took me flipping forever, but so worth it. I'm trying to show you. Oh, that's really good camera work. I'm so happy with these, but, and of course there was a but coming, right? And I had a sneaking suspicion the whole time I was beading. I was like, I don't think it's going to be enough, because where these suns are placed, they're right at the bottom of the skirt, right in the corner. And I thought, I think there's just going to be too much empty space, and I put it on, and I was so happy with this, but there was also that it's not enough. Not for me, anyway. It was this big expanse of purple, and I was like, it doesn't look cohesive. It looks slightly out of place that there are just these two giant beaded suns at the bottom. We need something to connect them. And I had thought this in my head the whole time. I thought, oh, maybe I won't need to. Turns out I do. I should just listen to my instincts. Anyway, so we're adding, oh god, it looks really bad. I swear it looks good. I swear it looks good. It's just the lighting. Yeah, look, that's better. So we're adding the little like flower motif. So those are like what are on her dress, like in the film. She's little, and then swirly motifs too, little swirls. Wow, look at this, really good. If I put it against my leg, it kind of looks okay. Anyway, that's not finished. I've done like half of one side. I need half another. I think I'm about to run a run. Oh my god. I think I'm about to run out of beads, which is a nightmare. And if I need more, I need to buy them today. There's the flipping roadworks. Okay, if I need more, I need to buy them today. So I need to make that assessment, that judgment today. Bro, can you not? Bro. Also, oh, hello. Hello. Also, this is a form of procrastination. I'm like, oh, I'll film an update. I'll film an update. You're welcome. This ain't good for me. I'm telling you that now. Bloody hell. So good for you, not good for me. Yes, this is definitely going to be being finished on holiday. There ain't no way.
Okay, so as I said, apologies for the minor crash out, but we were on a major time crunch and clearly the stress was getting to me. But anyway, let me get back to the actual point of this video and show you what we're working on. Surprise beading. Okay, so obviously I wasn't planning on doing this beading. I mean, I did know for a while in my head that the beading I'd done wasn't going to be enough and I knew I was going to do more, but this was slightly disheartening, but it's okay. Again, one of those things that looks a million times better, and I definitely needed to do it and I'm super glad I did do it. It just took a while to get there. But the end is in sight, we're so close. This is 100% worth it, so I hope you like the final dress. I should also say my calm demeanour in these videos is somewhat misleading. Internally, I was thinking there is absolutely no way this was getting finished, but still, perhaps a little bit silly, but I didn't want to rush the process because I wanted the beading to be good and purposeful and show off my technique, not just be a rushed mess. So then there were just some final finishing touches to do, like I had to hand sew around the armholes just to finish them off. You don't want to be leaving them raw. So I just did that with a whip stitch once I was happy with the shape. It was pinned in place and I did a nice little neat whip stitch around the edge. Without further ado, let me show you the final dress, obviously including the footage in Paris. Not in Paris, didn't go to Paris, footage in France. I found this perfect village that looked straight out of Rapunzel, like, hello, was I in Corona? Maybe. It was perfect. I hope you enjoy it, and then I'll give you a little final thoughts at the end. I'm just documenting what just happened, Abby. So what just happened, we're taking photos, aren't we? And we were, you know, approached by a French gentleman who's a journalist, and I'm going to be in the local newspaper. So, okay, so here we are, 6 weeks later, the finished Renaissance Rapunzel dress. I am so proud of this project. I love it. I fear this may be, do I say, my favourite thing I've ever made. I love this. I am just obsessed. It makes me so happy. It took forever, but it was worth it. Every second. Okay, a few honourable mentions. What am I particularly proud of? First of all, the fit. There aren't really any wrinkles or
more sort of mistakes that have been cemented into the dress. The fit is great. I feel comfortable wearing it. It sort of suits and hugs my figure. I'm really, really, really pleased with the fit. The beading, again, another thing I'm really proud of. 2 huge suns and all the smaller motifs. Took forever, but I'm so proud. I'm so pleased. I think it looks great. All of the little suns hidden. There are, I don't know how many there are in total, I should count. All throughout the project, got all the suns everywhere, and I love them. I think they're really pretty and gorgeous and add everything. Another thing I'm really, really, really pleased and proud of, and kind of like, well done Lucy for thinking of that, is the headpiece. Because I really knew this has been something that was playing on my mind from the very beginning of the project, or when I first like got this idea, was how the flip do I do the hair? How do I do Rapunzel's hair? Because I thought, obviously I've got very long hair, but I'm a brunette, as you can see. I don't want to wear a wig. That's not my thing. I would be incompetent at styling a wig. So I was like, okay, wigs out the game. What am I gonna do? And I was like, oh, like how do I think? And I thought, okay, what about fabric? Sure, there's a way I can incorporate it somehow. And I almost did it in the style of like a hairnet and then having the fabric drape down. But actually, I really like the headpiece a lot more. I like how it sort of like frames my head, if that makes sense. And then you have obviously the golden fabric flowing down. That's something I've gotten a lot of sort of praise, I don't know, compliments on, is the headpiece particularly. People like that. That's good. That's a win. I will say something that I really, probably the best comment I've gotten on it so far, because as I'm filming this, I have posted and obviously done the photo shoot and things. Someone said to me that they thought, I'll try and find the exact comment, but basically what they said was they really liked that it looks like something Rapunzel would wear once she, you know, had gone to Corona and been reunited with her family. Think like Tangle the series, whatever. It looks like something she would pick out and wear. The headpiece was obviously a really nice nod to her golden hair, which I know she does get back in the series, but you know, that was something I really liked, that idea of, because I did want it to be something that it felt like Rapunzel had made this herself. This was her dress, this was her design, she had sewn it, and that was something I was really going for. So that was probably the best comment I've gotten so far. This is probably one of my biggest projects to date. I'm so obsessed with how it turned out. Let's not commit to anything just yet, but maybe making a Rapunzel dress will be an annual thing. You know, let me know what style Rapunzel dress I should do next year. I'm thinking maybe a Rococo Rapunzel dress would be pretty cool at some point. I don't know. What style themed Rapunzel dress should I make next? Did you like the dress? If you didn't, please be nice. I really poured my soul into this project. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what you think I should make next. You stayed for this whole video. I'm impressed. Well done. If you want to stick around, maybe subscribe, like the video, comment, start a conversation. As Rapunzel would say, you got this. And I leave. By the way, it's my birthday tomorrow. It won't be when I post this, it will be ages ago, but as I'm filming this, today is my last day of being 18 and that feels monumental. I'm excited to start my new adventures as a 19-year-old, and let's see what I'll make next. So keep sewing.